welcome to another episode of AusBiz. We're back for another Tuesday. My name is Bryce, and as always, I'm joined by my equity buddy, Ren. How are you going?
I'm very good, Bryce. Great to be back for this Tuesday episode. As reporting season is winding down, we thought we wanted to take stock at the start of this week and...
Pun intended.
Pun intended. Always intended. And just have a look at what we've seen and what we've learned from reporting season. Yesterday, we were joined by Owen from Rask Australia, and he talked about some of his big takeaways. But this is the fire hose of content season. There is so much written, talked about, discussed at this time of year. So in today's episode, we wanted to do a roundup of a bunch of the takeaways that are out there.
Yeah, I mean, with reporting season finished, we might run out of content.
You're going to be pretty light on content. Maybe
so we're going to drag this out as long as possible.
Maybe we do past reporting seasons in review.
Nice.
February 2019, what did we learn?
What did we learn? Did it make a difference?
Yeah.
But that's right, Ren. So we've pulled out a number of pieces of commentary from various institutions and fund managers from around Australia to get their view on how they've thought of reporting season.
Yep.
So let's start at the top. Wilson's Advisory. So we all know Jeff and the guys there, Wilson's Assets. So they've pulled out three. It's not Wilson's Asset Management, is it?
No.
It's a different one, but anyway. They've put out three key learnings for them and three key thematics. The first one being looking through the valley. So they've clumped a number of companies in terms of companies that have had substantial impact from COVID, but investors are looking beyond the next 3 to 6 months to what it actually means should we be able to get past this COVID period.
Yeah, and tell us, give us some examples of companies that are looking through the valley.
Well, I think there's no better example than Qantas.
Yeah,
so
deep valley.
We know that there's a deep valley for them and they've been absolutely hit. They did have a reporting season, their share price, I think over the last 5 days is up something like 30% or something ridiculous. But they're obviously investors looking through. They've said that they should be able to get activity from an international point of view back online. And obviously, if you are getting in at the moment and that does come to fruition, then the outlook for Qantas is not so bad.
Yeah.
Other examples, Crown, Seek, Transurban, all these companies that have taken a hit. But if you look over the next 6 months or so, it's positive.
Yeah. So the next one was about peak or plateau. And, there's a lot of winners and losers from the lockdowns and from COVID more generally. Internationally, we hear about companies like Zoom and Peloton that have done incredibly well. And there's a long list of companies that have been impacted. But for the companies that have done well, the debate is, are these elevated levels of demand the new normal, or will there be a mean reversion? And, you think about companies like Coles and Woolies that have just seen incredible buying. You see consumer electronics companies like JB Hi-Fi or Kogan have seen incredible revenue growth. Companies like Marley Spoon, there's a lot of companies that have a business model or have had the infrastructure in place to really benefit from the last 18 months. And the question is, what happens when we sort of revert back to normal?
Yeah. And then finally, they clumped together a group of companies where, these are companies that you want to be invested in because their growth is structural, not coming from seasons. And they're, companies that have continued to perform really well despite disruptions that we're seeing with COVID. And, they're not necessarily cyclical businesses and just keep pumping out great results. So we've got Xero, Domino's, Afterpay, Goodman, these companies that are set up to perform despite what's going on in the macro environment.
Nice. So that was Wilson's Advisory. We had Owen on the show yesterday, so let's turn to Rask Australia.
Yep.
They published an article, the top 10 performers from reporting season.
Yep.
Let's not spend a lot of time on all 10, but give us maybe a couple that you thought stood out to you.
Well, we've spoken to Don Mayett, CEO of Domino's, so we can't go past Domino's was on the list. Continues to perform well, sales up 14% and profits up just shy of 30%, as well as an increase in dividends. So that Domino's was on the list. WiseTech is getting a lot of media at the moment. Revenue up 18%, gross margins up 85%, and also guide for next year as well, pretty impressive. So that was on the list. Other notable call-outs, Nanosonics, Lavoisier and Tyro. Pinnacle Ren, another one on their list. So for those that are unaware, Pinnacle is the parent for funds such as Hyperion, Firetrail, and
I think they got 16 funds.
16 funds, yeah.
14, 16, somewhere in the mid-teens, yeah.
And they had a great reporting season. Earnings up per share increased 103% off the back of management fees.
Nice.
Because of the star performers of some of their funds.
Maybe not so much management fees, but performance fees.
Yeah, because we know, for example, Hyperion just absolutely shot the lights out. Temple and Webster, they called out, obviously, with what's going on in online retail. Unity Group, they are Unity, sorry, provider of broadband, a telco. Revenue jumped 175%, while EBITDA soared 254%.
Not bad.
So continuing to go from strength to strength, and a really strong order book. And then to close out Netwealth, a super fund provider, and they, whilst in a very competitive environment against some of the really big players, have continued to grow market share. They have a market share now of 4.5%, which doesn't sound like a lot, but they have grown it from just shy of 1.5% over the last 3 and a bit years.
Wow.
So continuing to take market share.
There you go. Good on them. So in this roundup of reporting season commentary, we now turn to FN Arena. What were some of the big, takeaways from their reporting? So
we know FN Arena love their numbers, and they love comparing winners and losers, and also companies against how they performed expectation. Did they beat? Did they miss? And they just love pumping out those stats. I don't know, Rudy loves it.
All right, well, what were your takeaways?
So the gap between the winners and the laggards, or the losers, remains pretty large. So the total number of companies beating expectations, it has fallen below 35%. I think the average over the last few years has been about 33%, but the trend over the last year going into COVID and has been to be beating. Earnings momentum in Australia is now, they feel, past their peak, and especially given what has happened with COVID and the baselines that they were coming off, and that August could be the first month that we see on the ASX a net negative in terms of earnings revisions, so companies coming out and revising earnings down. But I guess the good takeaways from FN Arena was the dividend payouts that we saw. CommSec have said that 84% of companies are back in profit, and that it was a big month, as we know, of improved dividends. Yes,
we do. And then in all of your takeaways, there was something around the big companies v the small companies. What did you learn?
So this is based off some analysis done by Macquarie, and the small end of town continues to beat the top end of town. Macquarie analysis showed that there were more downgrades in forecasts in the top 100 compared to the small cap, and also that the small cap market has been outperforming the large end of town, particularly the top 50, which is a trend that we've seen continue over the last 3 years.
Okay, so if Macquarie is putting out analysis saying they like the small end of town, what are some of the companies that they're talking about?
So their list in terms of star performers was just based on results. So they've said WiseTech, which we know
not small end of town.
Not small end of town. Reliance Worldwide, Medibank, Parenti, City Chic, ReadyTech, Unity, and a bunch of others. So
nice.
A few in there. My pick of that, City Chic, obviously, being the retail whisperer.
Yeah, you do love a online retailer taking on the world. Let's keep this roundup of reporting season going.
Yep.
We turn to Marcus today and Henry Jennings, an AusBiz favourite, an Equity Mates favourite. He wrote about a few different companies, but I think the key takeaway for him was around Treasury Wine Estate. Could be back.
He thinks it's got its mojo back.
Yeah, there you go.
Absolutely got his mojo back. So started by saying that he didn't mind getting around a few glasses of red in the first lockdown.
Okay.
But as
invest in what you know.
Invest in what you know. But this lockdown has abstained completely, and turned his attention to actually looking at the company, Treasury Wine. So we all know that Treasury Wine is all about the brands. They've got a really well-known brand in Penfolds. You've probably heard of Wolf Blass, Lindemans, Set Pelp, Pepper Jack, and now one you've probably seen on the shelves 19 Crimes that is built for the US, which is interesting, which we'll get to in a bit. But Henry's key takeaway was this is now a company in transition, and that it is, their reporting wasn't anything unsurprising, but it's certainly now on a very good trajectory. And it was all about the pivot that they're trying to make.
Yeah, so explain that to me, because Chinese earnings were down a lot, 77 million.
Yes.
But they still increased their profit.
Yeah, so they had profit growth. You're right, China absolutely hit them hard. Net profit after tax was up 3% despite being hit hard from China, 309 million. And that was because they've been able to pivot sales through Hong Kong and achieve pretty significant growth in their Penfolds brands in other key regional areas. So think Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, they were all up and really producing solid growth around the 38% mark. So they've done well in redirecting.
Now, you mentioned there 19 Crimes, built for the US, and there's going to become a recurring narrative in this AusBiz show that Bryce loves rap. And we're starting it today. 19 Crimes has partnered with Snoop Dogg. So you are obviously very close to this, given your love of his music. So tell us about this partnership and what it means.
So Treasury Wines created the brand 19 Crimes. You may have seen it on the shelves. It's a pretty good brand. They used Snoop Dogg as the face of the brand to launch in the US, and it launched incredibly well. And the business in America is now up 23%, and this brand is really starting to penetrate.
What does it mean? It's made for the US. Like, is it a specific taste profile, or is it just the branding?
Good question. They didn't elaborate on this. I would say it's a branding point and maybe a price point as well, but leave that with me. I'll give it a taste. Okay. I haven't actually tasted it, but it's doing wonders apparently over in the States and really starting to hit its mark. And Snoop has done well for the brand.
There you go.
Yeah.
Also the face of Menulog in Australia. So
yeah.
Don't know what that says.
But anyway, a couple of key takeaways from Henry that Treasury still remains, and it is all about premiumization. So taking these brands and driving them up in terms of price points and driving up the value chain and improving their margins. And that the consumption of wines is now changing from not so much quantity, but quality of wine, and people are turning to buying pretty premium wines, and TWE are really positioned for that, given the stable of brands that they have.
Nice one. And as we get towards the end of our time, we do have one more report on reporting season, and that is from another AusBiz and Equity Mates favourite, and that is Junbei Liu from Tribeca.
Yeah.
She wrote about her favourite duopoly, and as two former supermarket retailers, it's not the duopoly that we know so well in Coles and Woolies. It's in online real estate listings. So tell us about the domain and real estate duopoly.
Yeah, so Junbei really, her key takeaway is that if you were to pick between the two, she really likes domain because she thinks that there's much more opportunity for growth. She compares where it's sitting in terms of total market cap compared to RIA, and believes that there's plenty of opportunity for it to start taking market share from domain. A few reasons why she thinks that there is plenty of opportunity for it to increase its listings on its platform. It is incredibly tied to the housing market, which we know has pretty good structural tailwinds at the moment. And she says things like it's a high quality business in high growth areas. It's very capital light compared to RIA, but really she just looks at the two. And if you're thinking duopoly, which has the most chance for growth, she's putting it in the domain basket. I know it's a pretty fraught way to compare market cap to market cap.
Yeah.
I don't there's a reason that RIA is the largest player in the market, but that's her report on the report.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's interesting, and Junbei is a lot better stock analyst than I am. But that feels, the logic there feels a little bit underdone in terms of, and that's probably more in your retelling than in her analysis. But just because one is smaller than the other doesn't mean that then the natural equilibrium is to get to the same size. there's plenty of duopolies where there's like entrenched structural advantages that makes one bigger than the other, and it's hard to bridge that gap. And we've spoken about REA a lot on this show, and the big thing that a lot of analysts keep saying is when costs to advertise go up, the one that goes first is domain. Like people have to be on REA, and domain is sort of the nice to have, but it's definitely the second thought. And I feel like that's a key thing to overcome. Like the network effect is there. If more buyers are on the platform, more sellers are on the platform, there's a element of self-reinforcement there.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you're completely right. She says that the outlook is double-digit growth, but they believe that there's still more opportunity for share price growth than in REA, given the duopoly, but can't disagree with what you said. There you
go. Well, look, that's just a taste of a lot of content that we've come across this reporting season, but a really fascinating reporting season, a lot to take away, a lot to learn from. I'm sure we'll do more episodes on this, but I think that's enough for today.
Sounds good. Well, we'll be back for the rest of the week. We've got Watchlist Wednesday tomorrow, and then obviously closing out on Thursday. So stick with us, and we'll see you tomorrow.